Hey, Nicola. Great to have you
Hello.
join us.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Awesome. So listen, you spent 20 years growing SparkRock, and congratulations on your exit in the last couple of years. I'm curious, what were your emotions, moving from something that you were so busy with and care so deeply, and probably lots of ups and downs, and to go from
hmm
that environment to, I guess, a little bit more freedom. What did that feel like?
Yeah, I think, if you were to ask kind of the initial emotions, I think it was definitely a mix of sadness and excitement because, you go from going a mile, a million miles a minute, right till, actually right to the very end. And that to all of a sudden go away, this kind of feeling of almost emptiness, like, oh my gosh, like, what will I do? And then this feeling of excitement that there's this whole future ahead of us, of myself and what I can do, that might be possible. And I think the other emotion I had was curiosity, like what are the other things I might be good at? What are the other things that I might be interested in? Because for 20 years we were so involved in the business, you don't really have the time to think about things, a little bit, things you might want to do differently. So I think that curiosity piece came through for me too, after the business was sold.
Yeah, well, it's quite an accomplishment. Not every software company gets to grow to the size that you're able to grow SparkRock, and of those companies, not all of them are able to get a successful exit. So congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you.
If there's like any advice that you would give your younger self, or maybe if you're having lunch with other
Mhm.
CEOs in the tech world, and you can provide a little bit of the experience that you recently had, what advice, what would come to mind, do you think? What other advice would you give a younger self, or
Yeah.
somebody who's in your role?
It's a great question, and it's something I think about actually a lot these days of like, what are the things I would have ever done differently? And certainly as I kind of, embark on a different type of role in what I'm doing today, this comes to mind a lot for me. And with linking hindsight 2020, it's always a great opportunity to think about what could have done differently, or what could be the advice for those types of CEOs. I think that, if I were to boil it down to the three, I would say it's definitely can be really lonely as a CEO. So I would encourage, it can be at times, certainly, it's depending on the structure of your company. You could feel like you're the only one out there on your own trying to make decisions, or kind of left with, you know, having to make decisions, at the end of the day. I think that having a mentor is really, really important. I wish I had spent more. I did that myself. I hired an executive coach. I wish I did more of it. And I would say that my advice around finding a coach or a mentor would really be to be as selective as possible around really the things that, they can bring to you and what you're trying to, type of support you need as a CEO. So things like, do they have similar background or experience, that you are looking for, that you can glean from and use that from their advice perspective? Or are they kind of in a similar, do they have some relatability to what you have? Maybe it's where they live, to, maybe it's gender, it can be anything, but like be selective to really look for a coach that's really going to align and understand where you're coming from as a CEO. And I think that will really help really boost, confidence, to how decisions are made, to how you're leading the company. The other item I'd say that I think is also really important is really building out your team. I think it's common sense, but you want to trust your team, and you want them to trust you. I think it's extremely important. So to do that, you really need to make investments in your team. And really, once you start to make those investments, give them autonomy so that they're really making the best decisions they can in their role for the business. And then by doing that, you're really starting to free up your time to be working on the business versus in the business. So you're able to really rely on your team to help operate the business. So I would encourage that, and then build checkpoints in place. Really build systems and processes around how you work with your leaders and your team, so that you're all aligned as the business grows and the strategies change. And then the third piece, I would say, that I found really helpful, that worked, and something that I naturally like, is having a bias to action. I believe that the CEOs that know how to move fast, they move quickly. Understanding that sometimes you just have to go do it to figure out if it's the right direction or right strategy, and that it's okay if you have to pivot. And I could say that change was the norm in our business. We were always changing and growing and making decisions. And I'd say that if you have a bias to action, you'll find that you'll start to distance yourself from competitors. So those are those three pieces of advice.
Really thoughtful response. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a decision that you made in the business that you either regret or felt you made too late or too early that you would love to do over again?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I wish that we had invested earlier in the business around actually customer journey work. We definitely focused on that as a company, and how our customer journey, what is our customer journey, and then how do we continue to support and improve and create efficiencies across our business so that our customers have get those desired outcomes they need to get. I think that I wish we had made more changes there sooner. We did make a lot of those changes, but later than I would have liked.
Okay, and, maybe for the benefit of the folks who will check out this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
tell us a little bit about the nature of the kind of the transactions and the relationship you have with customers, like in terms of maybe how long it took to get stuff going, how long customers stuck around with you, what the size of the investment was, how many users, like some sort of scale reference for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, our business was we did a ERP technology, and so with ERP, those implementations could take as long as, I would say, as quick as like 4 months, 2 months, and as long as like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It depended on the size of the business. We worked in bigger government or mid to large government, so big school boards to mid-sized government agencies, and then some nonprofits. So big changes within those organizations. When you put an ERP, we're changing their business, and so those projects can sometimes take quite a long time, and sometimes how we know to implement. I would say, we certainly knew we had processes of how we implemented. Like when I talk about what I would have changed sooner about it, I probably would have looked at trying to make more innovations around how we implemented our technology. Continuing to do that sooner than we would have liked. We thought about it a lot. We discussed it as a team a lot. But actually making those changes, we just took our time a little bit more than I wish we had.
Okay, and do you think those kind of decisions, or the example you talked about how you approached implementation,
Mm-hmm.
that would be very much integrated in that customer journey that you're referencing as well?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a stage within our customer journey. Launching the product within a customer and getting them live, would be a big component of the customer journey. And when it comes to this type of technology, it can be very painful because it's a lot of change for those customers. It's how they used to do things, to changing the way they do things. And so we had a very specific process to do that. I think, like I said, going back, like the decision or the bias to action, I probably would have tried to make more innovations around there. So it was quicker, faster, less painful for the customer, like always looking for ways to improve that for the customer.
Yeah, so a lot of that is kind of rooted in business transformation, digital transformation. Are the changes you're talking about in this, for instance, are they how you approach implementation, or is it stuff that you would embed into the product as like IP to make that experience better?
Yeah, I think it's both. It's obviously to kind of how does the technology really kind of automate and lend to those to kind of how it gets implemented. So
Mhm.
absolutely, we definitely did that. And then I think the other piece is just again going from a very structured waterfall type implementation to something more agile, and even kind of thinking about how does the customer, like, how quickly can they start using the product, what's the best way for them to adopt the product, how quickly can they change, what are, all of those pieces. I would probably want to spend more time. We've always wanted to do these things. We
Mhm.
always had these ideas about things we felt like we knew we needed to do. It's just going to actually changing how we do things quite dramatically, actually, to what we
Right.
used to know how to do.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. Now, maybe let's talk a little bit about the work that you're doing with tech stack. So,
Mhm,
full disclosure, SparkRock, your the company that you founded was our very first customer back
mhm.
a number of years ago.
Yeah.
And in the last quarter or so, we've launched an adjacent managed services system, if you want to call it that, called R40 Performance. And we're super excited to have you incorporated or be able to deliver your expertise to our customers as part of R40 Performance. Um, Tell us a little bit about one of the services that you're providing tech stack customers, specifically the customer journey mapping.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'll start by saying, the customer journey and customer success is very near and dear to my heart. I feel very strongly that, the customer journey work and understanding the customer, and being able to really kind of look from outside in terms of how your customers are categorized, to how they're profiled, all those components are really key to really help support growth. And so I feel very strongly about doing a lot of work in the customer journey area, because I think that by doing so, you're able to really deliver better outcomes, and the customers achieve better desired outcomes, and how they want to use your product, and that then translates into growth, into new sales growth, or more loyal customers, to greater revenue expansions in the customer base as well. If they're seeing value and they're really really leveraging the product in its best possible way, and it helps them achieve what they're trying to achieve, then you've just got growth opportunities from there. And so the journey work, the customer journey work, and the mapping work that I like to do is to really kind of take a step back and look at the customer, look at what the experiences are today, what are they experiencing today, and then where are there opportunities for innovation and inefficiencies, through to, even, are they achieving what they're trying to achieve? Are you uncovering areas? Are there areas or opportunities to uncover that really just help you align better to what the customer's trying to achieve and really simplifying the experience that you want them to have, and the journey itself. Like, you don't want to make it a challenge for a customer to deal with you as a company. You also want your customers to be using the product as successfully as possible. So this whole process and structure is really about getting to the heart of that, and like re-engineering and looking at opportunities to create greater efficiencies within your business, so your customers get the best desired outcomes they can get in the product.
Yeah, quite often, speaking from experience as well, quite often that's better served by somebody outside the organization as well, because customer success does cut over so many departments. It's product, it's implementation team, it's support team, it's the sales team.
Yeah.
It's sometimes having that outside advocate, and it can really help. You mentioned a bias to action.
Yeah.
I imagine that some of the challenges that you might have had in the past at SparkRock to implement this change is, probably a result of being on the inside and being too busy to do
Yeah.
stuff and
Yes.
make that change.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree. I think you'd need somebody from the outside that can help, whether it's the coaching, the mentoring through, and guiding them through to surfacing areas, of where you can be more efficient and how you're interacting with the customer, or just really examining areas of maybe where there's a customer, a group of customers or categories that are maybe struggling with the product, or you're having a lower retention rate, and why would that be? And so I agree. Like, I think that the challenge for technology companies today is everybody's so busy doing their jobs and really kind of focused on what their everything from their metrics to the customer itself, and they all have the best intentions, but it's hard for them to also take the time and step out of it to look at where can they innovate or what do they need to change. It's completely normal that it's hard for any kind of technology company to find the time or to identify these areas of opportunity for improvement. So having someone, a third party, and really to help move it along, well, I think it's a really create a more efficient way to make those improvements.
Yeah, no doubt. You're obviously lending from the experience that outside person would have, but I also got to think there's some objectivity that comes out of having an external resource, because I know like how sensitive I am about tech stack, and like it's your baby and you spend every day on it, and so there's this you're almost disillusioned. To think that somebody's not having 100% experience with your company, and it's sometimes hard to hear. So having that outside voice is a great objective way to achieve that as well.
Absolutely. And I think working with somebody that has had experience with some of that change or has seen different ways of how you can work in the customer journey and different strategies to take, it's really an opportunity. You get to hear about different ideas that worked for other companies, because you can get quite sometimes insular, right? You get really focused on how you do things. And lots of them you often have really great reasons for why the processes are they are. But having, like you said, that objectivity, somebody coming in to kind of challenge that way of thinking, helps to validate whether to keep it or to think about changing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see, I think, especially in 2025, I'd say 23, 24, 25, we're seeing software companies, tech companies having to operate more efficiently. We're seeing some of this kind of growth at all costs kind of approach not really driving the same value it did 5 years ago. Valuations are coming back down to earth. We're seeing more emphasis on profitability and profitable growth, and obviously a key part of that is getting that customer acquisition cost in line, but more importantly is making sure that customer sticks around long enough with you that you can actually see some profitability out of that customer. The lifetime revenue conversation, lifetime revenue over CAC conversation becomes that much more relevant. And I think customer success and that customer journey mapping is right at the center of that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You can't grow a customer if they're not with you or if they're not happy.
That's right. Yeah.
And especially in your industry, right? Because you had this like herding, like you had that situation where everybody was waiting for that one company, that one organization to make a move, and then how do they do with SparkRock, and then 20 would follow, and you had no choice but to do a great job, right?
That's right. Like they all talked. So if we had a bad experience with one customer, a lot of our customers would hear about it. So we really had to make sure that our customers were all getting a great experience. So
for sure.
There's the pros and cons of that. That's for sure.
That's for sure. I guess it helps to have such a great customer advocate like you leading the charge, though. So that's important.
Yeah. Thanks.
So listen, there's this like, I think 20 years ago, all we talked about was account management, and about 10 years ago, this concept of customer success came around, and I think kind of came around because the recurring revenue models were becoming more popular. But I think we're almost hearing like we're going back to this account management kind of approach, and I'm curious from an ongoing debate, like what's the difference between account management and customer success? And I'd love to hear it from your perspective.
Sure.
How did you separate those kind of concepts within your organization by role or by process, and how you tended to manage things at SparkRock?
Yeah, so I think I would just take a step back and maybe kind of think about it like how we view customer success over account management, because I would I would say one is customer success is really like a philosophy and overall strategy in a sense versus account management. I looked at it different. I looked at account management much more of like a role. So, and I think when you're able to do that, then you can figure out what type of roles you need for your company. But so if I were to look at like account management, if I were to look at it like from what's the focus or what's the responsibility or the metrics, like the focus of account management to me is really how do you manage the business relationship you have with your customer? And that's generally through your driving revenue or your renewals or upsells. And so I looked at it, I look at account management more like a business relationship with the customer. And it's generally your responsibilities are this like long-term relationship, or it's like you focused on the how, your annual contracts or your renewal of contracts. What other areas of the product could the customer be benefiting from? And those upsell opportunities. Account management's a lot more like what is the lifetime value of the customer, or what's the renewal rates or revenue expansion. And those are the types of metrics I would see in account management type of role. With customer success, I think of that like, how does your customer, the focus being, how can we ensure our customer achieves the desired outcomes with the product or service? Like that's the underlying focus of customer success. And then, so therefore, the responsibilities would be things like, how do we successfully onboard our customer, and like, can we do it quickly and painlessly for our customer? What are the needs that our customers have? How does that line up with our product? What are the types of support needs they might have? When do we need to be supportive of the product? When are they likely to call us for support? And are they really truly using the product? Are there areas of the product they're not using properly? Or are there areas of the product they don't know how to use? Or are there areas of the product they're using really amazingly? And so, and then I would say, like, if I were to measure, like put metrics beside customer success, it's like your adoption rates, it's your health scores, it's like your how are they promoters for our business? And that's how I would look at it. And I would say too, customer success is really something that is across, like I look at it cross departmentally, like versus account management, again, is that business relationship you're managing. And so it's very much that, obviously you care about the customer and that they're happy, but you're also focused on, are they renewing and they're upselling? And it's very kind of transactional in a sense, obviously with a very long-term strategy. But customer success, when you use it, you're interacting, and it's like the whole company's getting behind it, right? Because everybody cares if the customer is achieving those desired outcomes, like the product team through to support team. How are they being implemented? And so customer success sits, like, to me, kind of across the journey, and is quite critical to, how account management is successful, to how support team is successful, to how the implementers are successful, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess kind of if I were to distill that, you see account management as a kind of a role, very transactional, where customer success is more of a strategy that's cross-departmental, not necessarily encompassed within one role within that organization.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, you can have, though, we had customer success roles as well as type of account management roles. And so, you can have individuals really kind of championing the customer through the journey, and really kind of rallying internally as well as externally through, so to get that customer to those desired outcomes. But I always found too, and I think part of the dilemma often is, account managers would say, I can't sell them more things until they're happy with what they have. And you have this, like, so it becomes a real challenge. So by having a differentiation between somebody that's kind of that business relationship orientation and that, the revenue orientation to customer success, you've got, then both roles get they'll get satisfied with achieving their objectives in their role, because happy customers equal customers that are engaged in, leveraging the product as fully as possible. So, and the account managers then become happy. So,
Right. Very good.
okay.
Very good. Very helpful. Listen, Nick, thanks so much for grabbing some time. I really hope that this conversation is insightful for folks, and look forward to engaging with you with some TechStack customers on the
Absolutely.
customer journey mapping service that you're offering.
Yes.
And, thank you again.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me, Mark.